afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matthew Simerly. I'm a seasonal interpretive ranger here at Sycamore Shoals State Park. And today I'm going to be talking about making fire with flint and steel. Now, with flint and steel, you might think, like a Zippo lighter. You might say that that's flint and steel. Not really. With flint and steel, the process for it is relatively simple. You're creating a spark with the steel by scraping it along the flint rock, which is harder and softer than the steel, but it's more brittle. And by scraping along the steel, it scrapes off little flakes of the steel, and as it gets scraped off, that friction causes that little solid metal to heat up red hot, and that's the spark. So it says.
Yeah.
With flint being so hard and soft, it can scrape off that steel. Now, there's plenty of ways to start fire. You can do it by friction, like with a bow drill or something like that. Or you can do it by flint and steel also is a type of friction starting a fire as well. You're just causing the friction to scrape off the steel. Because with fire, you need three main things. You need heat, you need oxygen, and you need a fuel. Heat, well, that's what the spark from the steel is. It's the heat. Oxygen, well, we're all breathing air and that has oxygen, so that's covered there. And you need a fuel. That can be used for a lot of stuff that you can use for the fuel. This stuff right here is called jute string. Is jute string that I kind of unraveled, loosened up, and made into what I call a bird's nest. Because it looks like a bird's nest, and back in the colonial period, if you saw an old abandoned bird's nest, like the one up in that corner of the shed right there, you can use it to start a fire. Though I highly recommend that you don't, because birds' nests are home to a lot of other critters, ticks, fleas, and stuff like that, but in an emergency, you can use it. Make sure that the nest is unoccupied before you do it, though. And you have other things like, wood, stuff like that. The thing that was also used was a thing called chungus. It's a type of fungus that grows on mainly spruce trees, usually up in higher elevations. It's a type of fungus which is also commonly referred to as tinder fungus. You can use it to catch that spark and to keep it going. And it can also keep a spark going for a long time. A little chunk like this could keep a spark going for 2-3 hours, give or take. But the main thing that would have been used back then to catch a spark was what is called char cloth. Now, char cloth is basically a natural fiber other than wool, because wool is naturally flame retardant. It won't catch fire unless it's under constant heat. So it's usually would have been made out of linen or cotton material that would have been put in a tin can with a hole drilled into the top. You would put that in a fire and it would char the cloth, not burning it, just heating it up and just causing it to turn into basically charcoal. Same process. This is just pure, at this point, carbon, basically.
A burnt piece of material that ain't burnt.
Yeah, of natural fiber, cotton or linen. Wool doesn't do this. It doesn't do well. Modern materials like polyester, urethane, does not work. It will just melt. So think of it like old blue jeans or old underwear. That stuff works really well. Just put it in a tin can and heat it up. It'll char to a blackened material. And how it works is that you take a piece of that char cloth, like so, put it on your flint, and there we go. Catch the spark, put it in the bird's nest.
Now wait a minute, we ain't seen you catch the spark.
See that red burning fire stuff right there? It doesn't take much to get going. And wrap it up and
Look how smart you are.
She got her going. Look at that. There
So
we go.
the metal conducts more heat?
Yeah.
It's not that the metal conducts heat, it's that the metal it's steel, which is basically steel is a composite of iron and copper. Iron and, not copper, carbon. It's a very strong, soft material. And by scraping it off with the flint, by scraping off these little flakes of the steel, the friction causes that little spark to heat up. It's like taking if you take a fire and you start rubbing it on steel, the steel you're rubbing it on is going to get heated up from the friction. Same ideal, but you use the flint to do it in one quick go. Now, I've been calling it flint, and flint is what most Europeans were used in Europe to start fires with. So any hard enough rock that is soft can do this, as long as it's not too brittle. So with flint, there's only very few rocks that we call flint is actually flint. Most of what's called true flint comes out of England. Surprisingly enough, the white cliffs of Dover, that is flint. It is a white rock, very hard, can be very soft. It comes mainly out of England and northern France. A lot of the stuff you can find here in East Tennessee is called chaga. It is a
It's called what?
chaga. I'm probably horribly mispronouncing it. It is a hard black stone.
Okay.
Is that it?
This is a example of it. You can find it
Can I-
really. Oh yeah. You can find it throughout most of Appalachia basically. It's a very hard black stone. I tend to find that it's more durable than flint when striking, though it doesn't produce as good of a spark. Flint produces better sparks, but it gets eat up quicker. This piece originally started out as a piece about this big, while this one started out as a piece about that big. It just lasts longer. You can find it pretty naturally. How do you find out if a piece of rock will work? Just take a piece of high carbon steel, like an old file. Parenthesis on old. A lot of files you get today is made in China, and they don't work. I tried them, but they just don't work. Let's take it, file off the file edges, and just strike it.
So I have learned something, because I thought one flintstone was all there was. I didn't know there was several stones that would do that.
They're all colloquially called flint. There is only one true type of flint, which is, white English flint.
Yeah.
There are plenty of other rocks out colloquially called flint because it does the same purpose as flint, though it's not geologically flint.
Yeah.
It's kind of like calling it's like donkey and a mule.
Yeah.
They both do the same thing, they're just two different
Yeah.
beasts of burdens. Same jobs, different, thing. But in all practicality speaking, they are similar enough. You can just interchange and call them, beast of burden.
It was 114 in Oklahoma, didn't it? You stayed in the house.
There's also they also have something called a fire tube or char tube, which is basically a cotton or linen rope that's been charred on the end that you use to catch a spark,
Commonly known as a wick.
made from the same material as a wick, but not a wick. That's a different purpose. A wick is used to catch oil to light a lamp. This would be used to catch a spark. You see how it's gliding on there, not catching on there?
Uh-huh.
That's because it's too damp. It's been out in the air too long. It's got drawn up too moisture. But if it was dry, I could catch a spark on there, push it through, and light pipe. That's often what they use to light pipes with. Light it and pull it through, close it off, kill the oxygen, kill the spark. You can have a pipe lit up.
Antique cigarette lighter.
Exactly.
That's it.
A Zippo.
Both of the parts of the Zippo. So the flint and the
Antique
steel.
Zippo.
By the time when modern day propane lighters were invented, by the early 1900s, these fell out of use, except during World War I, because in the trenches you don't want to cause up a big light when you're trying to smoke. A lighter that opens up a big open flame, a lot of light.
Yeah.
You can get, that's a great way of getting an artillery cell in your position. So with this, you just get that little spark. You can put it in your pipe, light it up, close it off quickly.
I got it.
A lot less quiet, a lot less light. So you see these issued out in World War I and World War II.
She thought you wanted to vacuum.
I thought you wanted to go.
That and flint and steel still being used to make fires to this day. See a lot of survival kits, stuff like that. You also see a lot of stuff that's called flint and steel, like those magnesium bars you can get at Walmart. That is, while it works similar to flint and steel, it is not. It is a fibrous rod made out of a very flash-producing metal, a compound called, obviously that's fibrous. When you strike it along steel, it produces sparks, though it is not a stone, it is a metal, so it's not flint and steel. Similar enough, but different. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah. If I walk around here down that river and stuff, am I gonna find flint rock?
Well, white flint, not so much. That the native stuff, the black stuff, maybe.
Maybe.
Depending, because it is common. It's not the most common rock around here. You can find it though, fairly easily. So, depending, like would I be able to tell this rock just by look of it outside? Probably not.
Back in those.
But if I take a rock, busted it open, found out that I made soft, hot flakes, then I might go, okay, this might work. Get a piece of high carbon steel and just scrape it, and if it sparks, I know it's good. If it doesn't, well, I put in all that effort for nothing.
I could break up my pocket knife and start hitting it with rocks.
I would highly recommend not doing that because that's a great way of breaking a pocket knife. Usually if it's like a Swiss Army knife, something like that with a thin blade, it could snap fairly easily. A thicker back blade like a belt knife or a neck knife, you could, and they did use it back then in extreme emergencies, though it wouldn't be sought after because, well, back then most knives would actually would have been steel, but of a low carbon steel.
Mm-hmm.
High carbon steel was very hard to produce back then, produced in large quantities, so it would have been a highly sought after material. In fact, it's like with axes. When you actually look at an axe from the period, you'll find that it looks like it would have been forged well together, kind of like out of an ingot of iron, with a thin little billet of steel as the edge. Because high carbon steel is highly hard to produce, and very expensive, making the whole axe head out of high carbon steel would have been way too expensive to use. So they would just use the bit made out of high carbon steel, and the rest would have been made out of iron, which would have been easier to work with, cheaper, and much more commonly available. Also, with that, you just have to heat it up to, foam the iron, to, foam it into the axe head. With high carbon steel, you actually have to keep it in a high, furnace with a lot of coal, get the iron from the iron into steel via the carbon. It's a much longer, more expensive process. So that and also a lot of modern knife blades aren't actually made out of high carbon iron steel. It's made out of mixtures of stuff. A lot of tungsten, a lot of nickel. Still hard steel, but it's not iron steel.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Good presentation.
Thank you,
Very
ma'am.
good. Thank you.
Most definitely.